Hey everybody, don't know who's here. Welcome to the next part of our live stream here, where I'm going to take a look at this track that we were working on yesterday, this kind of country rock track by Moonshine, and we're going to take a look at the bass guitar and the guitars, bass guitar and regular guitars today. We'll see who's hanging out in the chat before we kind of get started. If you're watching this in the archive, you can always there we go. Look at the chat here. Make sure that I got the chat up and running. I'm running a second monitor here, so I'm looking off to the side to see this monitor. I'm trying to get a little bit better with the technology here to try to make this a little bit more seamless. So please bear with me. I'm not trying to be rude looking over or looking away at you. Just test out the chat here. We'll wait for a couple of people to show up and then we'll get started. This time around, we're going to take a look at bass guitar and guitars, and I also want to show you a couple of things that I did to enhance the drums after yesterday's live stream. So if you're watching this from the archive, you can, a couple of things you want to make sure you do. Go ahead and make sure that when you're watching this on YouTube that you change your YouTube player setting to 1080p. Because that's going to give you kind of the best resolution to make sure you can see some of the detail on the plugins and such. And also, you should be listening to this on either a really good set of headphones or studio monitors, if you can. If you're listening to this on a mobile device or, inexpensive earbuds, you may not get the full effect, obviously. That's okay, because you can always go back and watch it in the archive, because this is obviously going live, but then it's also going to be hanging out in the YouTube playlist live streams, which you can always go check it out there. So let's see who's on the chat. I'm going to look over here and see who's there. We got a couple of people already watching. I will wait a few minutes and then we'll get started. You can always, if you're watching this in the archive, you can always fast forward and check out what we got going on. We got 3-4 people. Everyone's going to start jumping on. How is everybody today? Hope you're all doing well. Again, my chat is going to be over to my left, so I'm going to be looking away here, and I apologize for that. Let me know if you can hear me okay, if you can see everything okay. The lights are kind of dim in here. I really wasn't too worried about getting the lighting perfectly, because, you don't need to see my ugly mug, right? We're going to be taking a look at our DAW session here in a second anyhow, so you're not going to need to worry about that. So hopefully everybody is doing well today. I know it's early. It's about 9 o'clock in the morning here on the East Coast. And I got to get things started here in my day. And then we're going to move on. So anyway, let's go ahead and let's just jump in and start. Let's not wait too long so people aren't bored watching the replay on this. So anyway, I'm going to switch over to Studio One here in a second. But couple of things I want to show you. So if you did not see yesterday's video, it's already up on YouTube on the playlist called Live Streams. Go check it out when we go through the whole drum kit. And I'll kind of play you a kind of section of where we are in the drum kit. And after, as I continue to work on this song, I made a couple of changes that I want to show you, just because I always want to kind of keep you up to speed. So again, this mix is only about 50% done, as I said yesterday. So one of the things that I want to kind of do with these live streams is not to just show you the plugins and what I'm doing, here's the settings, but I think the more important thing for something like this, and what a lot of my followers, the reason why you guys kind of gravitate towards my products and some of my teaching, and I know this because you guys have said this to me millions of times, is that you like the fact that I try to take the time to explain why I'm doing what I'm doing, excuse me, and to kind of share with you my thought process on what I'm thinking when I'm going through a mix like this, because I think it's a lot more beneficial than you just hearing or just seeing me pop up some plugins and show you, why I, set the attack and release on a compressor a certain way. I mean, that's all important stuff, and we talked a lot about that yesterday. But the one thing I want to kind of convey and kind of, have you guys kind of think about is, once you want to try to get beyond the technical, right? Once we understand the technical and we get all our settings on our plugins rolling, we really want to try to get into the creative. And what I'm always thinking as I'm going through a mix such as this is that I'm always, I mixed the drums yesterday. We thought they sounded great at the end of the session, but in listening back again while I'm playing with the bass, as we'll do in a little bit, I thought the drums can use a little more. They can use a little something extra. And I'm constantly always thinking to myself, what else does it need? Does it need anything else? We're mixed the drums, we're listening to the drums, we bring in the bass guitar. Do we need anything else? You know, and I kind of make the analogy like you're like a chef in the kitchen, right? And you're stirring up the soup on the stove, and you know you're doing some taste testing, and you're saying to yourself, okay, what does it need? Does it need some salt? Does it need some hot sauce? What do we need to make that soup really stand out and make it delicious? And I think of mixing in a lot of the same way. You know, I want the mix to jump out of the speakers at me when we're all done. I want the mix to be exciting. I want the mix to just sound great. You know, good is not good enough. We want it to sound great. So I'm always thinking about how can we push the boundaries a little bit. And sometimes you push it too far and you have to dial it back. And that's all part of experimentation. So I want you to kind of think about that when you're working with a song where you have something like this, where the tracks were recorded really well. And we talked about that yesterday, where we're not really doing any repairing. We're actually mixing now. You want to think beyond, you know, the dopey controls on a compressor. You want to start to think about, well, how can this be better? Okay, so having said that, how many people we got in the chat? We got 12 people already. Okay, cool. We're going to jump over to Studio One here, and we're going to take a listen, take a look and a listen. So let me just switch cameras here quickly. We got to go to camera one. Now you should be seeing Studio One. And if you can't see Studio One, please say something in the chat. Hopefully the few people that are watching will say something, because I'm just going to move on and hope that it all turns out well. Because I'm a rebel like that. I got two screens kind of happening here, so you know, bear with me here. I'm going to keep my eye on the chat as much as we can. You should be looking at Studio One now, and if you are looking at Studio One, if you wouldn't mind in the chat just saying, yes, I can see Studio One, and let me know if that is working properly. And make sure you can still hear my voice. The people that are kind of watching, thanks for joining us. So we're going to kind of go ahead, and we're going to kind of you know, move forward with the drums. So let me show you what I kind of did to the drums here. So the first thing I wanted to show you is down on the drum bus. Okay, we talked about this yesterday. And first, let's just play like the verse and the chorus of just the drums. I'm going to mute the bass here just so you kind of know what we ended up. Where did we leave off yesterday? Again, if you didn't see the video yesterday, go head out to the archive and check it out. And I'm going to mute the guitars here for a second. So here's kind of just the verse and of the drums. And if you remember, we were using some this Universal Audio Ocean Wave plugin for kind of that room sound to give it kind of a bigger, livelier sound. And what I did was I added a little more reverb to this than I did yesterday. I wanted it to sound a little bit bigger. Okay, so we got a drum kit that sounds pretty good there, right? So what I did yesterday after I was continuing to work on this is I wanted a little bit more. I wanted a little bit more beef, a little bit more bottom end. So I came in here and I added the Slate Digital Custom Series lift to this to give it a little bit more thickness. So before the Custom Series lift, here's kind of what the drum sounded like. This is what it sounded like when we ended our session yesterday. Sounds pretty good, right? So I brought in the Custom Series lift. Okay, I really wanted to give it a lot more bottom end, a lot more fullness, and I wanted to get a little more snap on the top end. So on the Custom Series lift, you can see here on the big setting, I just gave us like a couple of dB and then also a couple of dB on the present setting. I love this parallel EQ by Slate Digital. When you just need things a little bit more, this just kind of pushes it over the top. And I felt like the drums sounded great, but it needed a little more beef. And so I added the Custom Series lift. Now this could be something, again, as I talked about a few minutes ago, you know, always thinking about what else can I do to make this thing kind of sound more exciting. And sometimes we're going to push this stuff too far. And as we bring other elements of the mix in, we may decide that, you know what, this song, it's a little bit too much on the drums. We can always take it away. But don't be afraid to try to experiment. Don't be afraid to continue to push the limits. That's kind of my point here. So we added the Custom Series lift to the drum bus. And then the other thing that I did, again, to give a little bit more crack on the snare, is I added, after the compressor, or after the channel strip, I added the Universal Audio SPL Transient Designer. Now this is a great little plugin. I just gave a little bit of tack to kind of give us a little more crack on the snare after it was compressed with the Vision channel strip. So if I start with it, I'll play with it on and then I'll just take it away. So here's the snare with it on. And I'm going to do this, and again, I'm always doing this in the context of the mix. So make sure you understand that when I add these things, I'm always adding it not in solo, I'm adding it with the whole kit playing. Here's with the transient designer. I'm going to take it away. Okay, listen to the crack of the snare. Just gives it that little extra. So it brings back some of the transients that we kind of lose a little bit on the compressor on the channel strip before it. Okay, so not much, just a little bit of extra spice in the soup, so to speak. Okay, so those are the two things that I did to the drums after our session yesterday. So now let's move over to the bass guitar. So over here we have a bass, and we have a bass distortion track. We're going to mute the bass distortion track. Basically, this song came with just a bass track, and all I did was duplicate the bass track, and we're going to add a little bit of a distortion plugin, which we'll talk about in a minute for like the choruses. And again, I don't know if I'm going to use it, but it's something I like to do to kind of make the bass stand out a little bit in the choruses. So let's take a listen to our bass guitar here. Okay, so that's our process space. So let's just take a look at the chain here. So we're looking at the virtual tape machine. Again, like yesterday, we're at 30 IPS per second. We're on the 16-track multi-track mode. From there, we're going over to the VCC, the virtual console, and just like the drums, we're on the API console, okay? And then over there, from there, we're going to the Vision channel strip, again, using this just like we used it on all the drums. And if we take a look at what we're doing here, we don't have any low pass or low cut filter on here. Didn't feel it needed it because it was probably had a little bit of a low cut filter during recording is my guess. I didn't want to thin it up too much. On the compressor here, we are running with kind of a medium, a more slower release, and about a 4-to-1 ratio. Again, like the drums are a little bit quicker release, the bass is a little bit slower because I wanted to sustain the notes a little bit and I wanted to grab that bass. We're using a medium style attack. Okay, and then on the EQ at around 800 hertz, we're doing a 2 dB bump. At 700 hertz, I'm also doing a 2 dB bump. So let me give you before the channel strip. Here's before the API Vision channel strip, and then I'll click it in as we're going. Okay, we're compressing about 3 dB. Okay, and then from there, we're going over to the, let's see, there's a couple more plugins here on this chain. After that, I'm following this up with the Universal Audio LA2 compressor. Now, we're compressing on the Vision channel strip about 3 dB, but I'm adding another compressor. And you may say, why? Well, if you listened and watched yesterday's video, you'll know that we talked a lot about when we were talking about the overheads and I was adding the Pultec EQs to the overheads. And I talked about how I'm setting up my DAW kind of like an analog studio, meaning that, you know, you have the desk, the console, which in our case is the API. And then in an analog studio, you would normally have a bunch of extra hardware. You may have a couple of Pultecs, you might have a couple of LA2As, you may have a couple of 1176s, you may have a Fairchild compressor, and you may have some API EQs, things like that. And so what you would typically do in an analog studio is the engineer would add these certain pieces of hardware to certain elements of the mix to kind of make those elements kind of stand out in the mix and give them a little bit special flavor. So we did that with the Pultec EQs yesterday, and I'm doing the same thing with the bass here. So even though I've already compressed it on the channel strip, just a little bit, not a lot, I'm also following it up here with this LA2. This version of the LA2 has a much slower attack. It's not a fast attack like some of the other models, the gray model and the silver model. This is a slower attack. And again, I'm just trying to get the bass to pull a little bit forward and give it a little bit more round sound. And that's what we got here. So again, only about 3 dB of compression. Now if I take it away, okay, so hopefully if you're listening to this on a good set of headphones and or studio monitors, you would hear that the bass just kind of pulls forward a little bit and it gets a little bit fatter sounding. Okay, we're not changing the face of modern music with this. We're just giving it a little bit of that extra spice in the soup, right? That's what this is doing to that bass, which is setting it apart from the guitars, which will be coming up. Okay, so that's kind of what we're doing with the LA2. And then the last plugin I put on here, and again, I might leave this on here, I might not. Again, just experimenting. Again, what can I do to make this thing sound a little bit more exciting? Well, I decided to try out the UAD Roland Dimension D. I love this on vocals and I love this on bass because it's a very subtle type of a chorus. The hardware unit back, I think in the 80s, was a real popular hardware unit. And this is a really cool thing. It just gives it another layer to kind of thicken up that bass. And it's very, very subtle. So if you're not listening to this in a studio environment, you may not even hear the difference. But I'm going to take it away and I'm going to bring it in. And it's a little bit of a chorusing effect. That's all it is. I just picked a preset called Mode 4 Mono because this is a mono track. And it just gives it a little bit of something. I'll turn up the bass a little bit more to see if you can hear it. So this is without it. And then I'm going to push it in here with this red button. So here we go. Before, after. Okay, so hopefully you can hear the difference there again. It's just very subtle. It just kind of rounds out that bass a little bit more. It's just to give it a little bit extra. And again, may automate this in just the choruses, don't know, may leave it on during the whole track, not really sure, but I know that I use this a lot when I'm looking for a bass to kind of give it a little something special. I'll throw it on and then I may use it, I might not use it. Okay, so that's my thought process there. So that's our bass that we have going on the regular track. Now, if we move over to the distorted track, and I'll turn the regular bass down and turn this up, all I did was copy the entire track, and then it has all the same plugins on it. It's got the virtual tape, it's got the VCC, it has the channel strip, which has the same settings as the first bass, and then from there, we're going over to the custom series lift, and I wanted to use this on the distorted track because I wanted to give this a little bit more top end. I wanted it to cut through a little bit more. So I just threw this on here, gave us a little bit of silky setting here. I'll kind of play this and then after that I have a distortion as well, which we'll talk about. But let me shut off the distortion so it doesn't kind of mask up what we're going to do with the custom series lift. So with the lift, let me mute the first bass track here so you guys can just hear this secondary track, and I'll turn it up. Before. After. Okay, so we're just giving a little bit of crispiness on the top. It's not much. And then I'm following it up with this PreSonus plugin. This is the red light distortion, which I kind of like. This is great on bass. And again, we're using this very subtly. And this will be a track that I'm going to tuck in underneath the regular bass. So I'm going to turn this down a little bit. So this is what we're going to do with the red light distortion here. We're just driving this thing on the setting down here called the bad tube. And we're just driving it at about 50%. And here's kind of what that does. Okay, sounds kind of gnarly on its own. Hey, Johnny, I see you just showed up in the chat. Welcome. Let me know if you can hear and see everything okay. I see we have like 26 people here. If someone in the chat, just make sure that you can actually hear and see everything in Studio One, because that would really, it would really suck after 20 minutes if you guys haven't been able to hear anything. But I'm sure you would if someone in the chat would have said something. But anyway, so that's what I'm doing with the distortion. I'm just kind of, crisping up the bass a little bit. And then from there, I'm going over again to the LA2, just like I did on the other one. Okay, no big deal. And then when you blend these two things together, now this might be something, again, I'm not sure if I'm going to use this throughout the whole track or if I'm just going to bring in this on the chorus sections when we get to automation. That'll be in a later video. So anyway, I start with it down, bring the regular bass in, the original track. Then we're going to tuck in this distortion track underneath it. Shut it off here, mute it. Okay, so that's what we did with the bass. And again, this is something that I do, not all the time, but quite a bit. A lot of times I'll copy the bass and add some nice crispy distortion to it and kind of blend it in. Again, it gives it a little more character, and it starts to give it a little bit more vibe. Just like with the drums, like I talked about 5 minutes ago, where we talked about adding the transient designer and the custom series lift to give the drums a little more punch, a little bit more mojo. Well, that's the same kind of thought process I'm using here with the bass. Okay, so now let's take a look at the first rhythm guitar. Now, this track originally, and you didn't see this from the beginning, unfortunately, because we were having all kinds of live stream problems, right, Johnny? We're having a ton of live stream problems, and you weren't able to see me in the beginning stages of this, but you will on the next song. I'll take you from the very beginning again, trying to talk about my creative process, for lack of a better term. When this session was delivered to me, this was just, there were 3 guitar tracks. There was a guitar track here that I have labeled guitar track verses, and then there was a guitar left and a guitar right for the choruses. And they were playing all the way through the song, all the tracks. And what I decided to do is I decided to, just because all the guitars were playing through the entire song, as well as the piano, the verses and the choruses, there wasn't that big pop in the chorus. So we're talking yesterday about how I want to make this has got a strong melody in the chorus, I think, and I want the chorus to really pop. So I need the verses to be a little bit more sparse. So there's a couple of things you can do. In the choruses, you can, with automation and stuff, you can bring up the volume, you can add other elements to the chorus to kind of make it stand out, or you can strip some things away in the verse to make the verses a little bit more sparse. So when you get to the chorus, it automatically kind of gives it that build feel, right? So what I did was I took all the rhythm guitars the chorus guitars, it was also playing in the verses. So I stripped all those out, as you can see, and I just have one, and I just copied it onto one track and called that the verses, and I panned it a little bit over to the left. So all you have is that one rhythm guitar happening in the verses, and then in the choruses, that verse guitar goes away, as you can see here, and then everything doubles up on the choruses, again, to give the verse a little bit more or a little less excitement. And I did the same thing with the piano, which we'll get to later. So anyway, so here is the verse guitar. Let's just let's just loop the verse, because you're not going to hear it in the chorus. Okay, so let's take a look at what we're doing here. So we're using the virtual tape machine, as always, and then we're going over to the virtual console collection. Again, not driving it too hard. Kind of right up the middle. Then we're headed over to the the API channel strip once again. Now on my high pass filter, I'm only rolling it off at 50 hertz. I'm actually leaving a lot more bottom in these guitars than I would typically. And because I want to hear, because it's the only guitar really going on in the verses, and it's kind of got that chunkity chunk thing, that kind of palm muted thing, I wanted it to stand out more. So, you know, I wanted that to kind of drive the vocal when you hear the vocal later on in another section. So I only cut this thing off at 50 hertz, okay? When we get over to the compressor, you'll see that I'm not compressing very much here. I got about a 5-to-1 ratio with a pretty quick release. Again, it's kind of a staccato, kind of a palm muted thing. A medium attack. Oh, okay, guys in the chat are saying everything sounds good. Okay, great, good, cool. So that's what we got going on here. And then the EQ. We have a 4 dB bump at 7K. I have a 4 dB cut at around 500 and a 2 dB bump at around 200. Again, a little bit more low frequency. I want the chunkity chunka to come out. So before the channel strip, here's what we got. Okay, so we're just compressing a couple of dB, but you can hear those guitars automatically pull forward and things just get a little fatter, right? That was the idea here, because it's the only electric guitar playing in the verses. There's no other supporting instruments. So that's what I did there. Now what I'm going to do here in real time, because again, I'm always thinking about the creative, and I'm always thinking about, okay, what else can I do to this guitar? You know, when you hear the whole mix and you hear the rough, you know that it's just a vocal, bass, drums, and one rhythm guitar. And it sounds okay, but it could sound a little bit better. So what I'm going to do, and again, we may take this away later on, but again, always constantly thinking about these things, is I'm going to drop another compressor on there, and I am going to use this compressor, which is one of my favorite guitar compressors. This is the Wave CLA-3A. Universal Audio also makes a version of this, which I have. But I do like the Waves version better. It's got a little bit more character, okay? It's got a little bit more gritty grit, and we want a little more gritty grit. And I don't know how much I'm going to use this, but we're going to try it. So let's go ahead and let's just dial in and let's see what we get. Instantly, we could see the gain needs to be turned down. Start back here. That's before. Okay, so it's subtle. It adds a little bit of excitement there. It's not too great, but it's not too bad. And I think I'm going to leave that on here for now. And again, as we start building the rest of the mix, I'm going to go ahead and I might take this away. I might push it a little bit harder. That's kind of the thought. So I'm going to leave that on there. Again, it's another one of those elements, again, that no other track has. And it's going to make that guitar sound a little bit special because, again, it's the only guitar supporting the vocal. Okay, so that's the rhythm guitar. And again, it's panned off a little bit to the left, just so it kind of sits over to the side a little bit so it doesn't get in the way of the vocal. And so now let's take a look at the chorus guitars here. So in the chorus, as we talked about, this rhythm guitar on the verses is going to kind of go away and we're going to get the big chorus, right? So these are all just panned hard left, hard right. It's the same, I think it was it wasn't the same part copied. It was played twice. And so we're going to, it's just panned hard left, hard right. So let's just take a listen to what we have when we get to the choruses on these guitars. So I'm going to play kind of the end of the verse into the chorus. You can start to hear where it's going to build. Okay, so we get those big chords. We get the big open, the big bar chords there towards the end of that, which is really cool. So let's take a listen to what we did, or take a listen. You already took a listen. Let's take a look at what we did there. So on these two chorus guitars, again, we're going tape machine, going console again, over to the channel strip, okay? So on the channel strip here, I rolled these off a little bit higher on the high pass, right around 100 hertz, okay? Because I think what we're going to do on the bass is I'm going to automate that bass distortion, and it's going to creep up a little bit in volume, and it's going to, then I don't want the guitars to really compete with it on the low end. And so that's why I chose to do that. Again, I might tweak that later. On our compressor, our compression settings are pretty much the same as it was on the other guitar. We're not compressing very much. And over on the EQ, we're doing an 8K bump at a 2 dB. And that's really about it, just to brighten them up a hair. So before, I got to put these both on the screen because they're grouped together. So we have a left, and we have a right, and everything is the same for these two chorus guitars. So I'm going to turn them off now, I'll bring them in, and you can hear what's going on here with those guitars. Here we go. Okay, so they just pop just a little bit more. May even need a little bit more high end, but we'll see when we start building in the rest of the instrumentation. That might be tweaked a little bit, but it builds up from the verse to the chorus, obviously, right? You guys can hear that, hopefully. So that's kind of what we're doing. And again, we'll automate the bass to kind of bring up that distorted track a little bit, just to kind of give it a little bit more flavor. So that's what I did on the chorus guitars. I might even throw a Pultec on that. You know, a Pultec EQ might sound really good on that. Again, see how I'm thinking, and I'm doing this out loud to kind of let you guys in on my crazy thought process. So here we go. Hey, I hope you guys like this style of teaching. If you don't, I'm sorry. I just don't want to show you settings. I really want you to kind of get inside my head and start to think about maybe how I think about a mix, and maybe you'll employ some of these techniques with your own mixes and come up with your own kind of way of doing things. So I want it to maybe be a little bit brighter, a little bit more standout on those chorus guitars, but like we talked about yesterday with EQ, I don't want it to be shrilly, and I don't want it to be too bitey. So I got to pick something that's going to smooth it out, give it a little more character, but not be over the top. So a great candidate for that will be a Pultec EQ. And so let's drop a Pultec on here. Okay, we're gonna put two of them on because we got two channels. And again, if you remember yesterday, oh, it's already on two channels. Hey, how about that? All right. We did this on the overheads yesterday. Okay, we also use these on the overheads. Now, again, thinking like an analog studio, you know, would you necessarily have 4 Pultecs in your studio? Probably not. So I'm kind of cheating a little bit. I don't know if I'm going to leave these on here, but again, there's no rules, right? There's no rules. Okay, so I'm not going to do anything with the low end on these things. I'm just going to go ahead and boost a little bit on the top. And I'm going to do, well, I don't know, 12K. What the hell, right? Let's just try it. Let's boost this up 3 or 4 dB. Let's push it past its limits. Let's even go 6, 7 dB. These are going to be bright, and we're going to dial it back, and we're going to see what it sounds like. That's what we're here to do. So let's go to the chorus only, because that's where these guitars kind of come in. And let's hear what we got, shall we? Okay, here we go. Chorus guitars with Pultecs. Let it loop around again. Okay, so hopefully you kind of get the idea. So when you put these Pultecs on there, you kind of it opens it up considerably. And as you saw, I was kind of, messing around with the frequencies, just kind of trying different things and see what we want to do there. I don't want it to be too much. I don't want it to be too bitey, but I want it to, I want these guitars to cut. And again, we don't have the vocals. I don't have the pianos in here yet. I don't have all the background vocals in here yet. So this is going to be tweaked for sure. And this is going to be done at the end in the context of the mix. This is not going to be done the way I'm doing it now. I'm just trying to show you, an example. So right now, I kind of like, I don't know. I'm almost thinking like I like it up here at 10, 12K. I don't want it to be... Okay, so I'm kind of liking that. I like that kind of 12K. I don't want it to be too obvious. I don't want it to sound like it's EQ'd. I just want to give it a little bit of flavor. And that's what I did there. So now let's move over to this other lead guitar. This other lead guitar is playing little snit bits throughout the whole track here. Let me see if I can find a section where it kind of stands out a little bit. It's not, it's in the choruses for sure. Where else is it? It's in the verses. Okay, it's kind of supporting this other rhythm guitar, just kind of playing. Let's see what we got here. Okay, it's just kind of a clean guitar, it's going to kind of sit in the background. Right now it's kind of panned up the center with the vocal, and let's play this lead vocal here with it, and let's see if we can maybe find its right space in the left right spectrum here. I'm going to move it over to the right for now, right around 60, around 60%, just for starters. And again, it'll move, I'm sure, at one point. But let me just kind of show you what I'm doing with the processing here. So again, we're doing the tape machine thing, we're doing the virtual console thing, and we're doing the Vision channel strip thing. And again, I don't know what the hell okay, so I'm rolling off here right around 90 hertz. Okay, how you guys doing in the chat? Okay, everyone's there. Okay, cool. All right, cool. Just taking a look at the chat. Okay, so rolling off around 90 hertz or so. Got to be careful with this guitar because it's got kind of a clean, glassy sound to it. It could get a little irritating to the ear. So I got to be careful with this. So for compression, let's see what we got going on here. So I'm compressing it a little bit more just to keep those notes a little bit even and not have anything poke out too much. So we're probably compressing, about 6 dB here. I'm gonna go on a fast attack. About 3 to 6 dB of compression on that, just to try to get the notes to even it out a little bit. Let's see, at 7K got a 2 dB bump, at 1.5K a 2 dB bump, at 500 hertz we took out about 2 dB, and that was it. So before the channel strip, here's kind of what we got going on with this track. Let me just kind of turn this up a little bit. It's going to be a little exaggerated and a little too loud. Definitely pulls it forward, that's for sure. That's all the compression that we got going on there, and it kind of softens the top end just a little bit. Now, what I think I'm also going to do is I'm going to probably push the tape a little bit harder on this. And I'm going to put this one at 15 IPS just to try something. Because again, it's got a little bit of a spiky feel to it. And so I want to round off this top end a little bit. So let's just play with this a little. Okay, so that tape definitely, again, don't know what you'll hear over the stream, but that tape definitely helps soften up that edge a little bit. And again, it's too loud right now, because I want you to hear the example. If I turn this down a little bit and kind of put it where it probably should be. Okay, a little bit better. And again, I'm going to play with that later, but that's kind of the thought. I might even toss a different type of compressor on there. You know, let's try that. Let's do that in real time. Again, that's what I want to kind of do this together with you guys. So we want to find something that's smooth, you know, so we want to look for like a tube-based compressor, I think, because a tube-based compressor is going to, again, it's going to help smooth out those edges a little bit. So let's, we already used an LA2 on the bass. So again, I don't want to just throw an LA2 on everything because, you know, I want to be careful about that. So again, I got to think about, again, if we're in a real studio, what would we be looking at? What could I try? I could try a Fairchild. Fairchild's an awesome, anything sounds good in a Fairchild. Let's try that. Again, we're just trying stuff, right? So now if I were to shut the compression off at the Vision channel strip here, the API, and let's just play with the Fairchild. Let's just see what does it do, you know? Okay, now let's bring it back with the API and let's just see by adding 2 compressors, what does that do? I'm compressing this a lot. Again, I'm just experimenting right now. Okay, don't be afraid to experiment. There's nothing wrong with experimenting. That's what you want to do. Don't get, you know, sometimes we get so caught up in our own ways and we end up doing the same thing, mix after mix after mix, same plugin, same settings, and it becomes so mechanical, right? You guys ever feel that way in the chat? Well, we got a lot of people here. How you guys doing? You ever feel that way in the, you know, when you just do the same things over and over? You know, don't be afraid again to just try stuff. Think about, again, what does it need? And, you know, if we don't solve it right here, right now, that's okay. You know, I could always come back to it. So let's turn on the Vision channel strip compressor again, and let's kind of put both of them together. What does that do? Well, I can tell you that definitely helps that third note, that do, that note that kind of just pumps out and really hurts the ear a little bit. Having them stacked like that really kind of helps control that a little bit. I'm kind of liking that for now. So there you go. That's kind of how we how I think about these kinds of things. So just tucking it in the track, not making it too loud. Very nice. Now let's go over to the reverb for guitars. And as we talked about yesterday with the drums, I'm using the same reverb that I use for the drums. I'm using the Ocean Way Studios by Universal Audio. Reason why I'm using this is because I want to kind of give this whole track the feel that it's all in the same space. So I wanted to use the same kind of reverb on all the tracks. I don't always do this, but in this particular mix I did. And I chose this time Studio B. I chose one of their guitar cab, emulations in the room with a couple of mics. We have the near mic and the not near mic, just the mid mic here. I turned off the other two mics because I didn't feel like I needed it. And again, I'm using it on reverb mode, and I'm just sending a touch of these, just a touch to this reverb. I'll exaggerate it here so you can hear it. Maybe during the verses, you'll hear that chunkity chunk rhythm guitar kind of happening. Real short room, right? With no reverb. Little reverb. Okay, so that's what I'm kind of doing with the reverb. Just kind of dialing into taste, not getting too crazy with the reverb. And that's pretty much all I did with the guitars. And now we could just take a look quickly. We got about, where do we, almost an hour in? Okay, let's go about another 10 minutes. We'll take a look at the pianos. So the pianos are real simple, it's left and right. As I said a little earlier, the pianos were playing out through the entire song. And again, I stripped them out all of the verses and I only put them in the choruses because I felt like I wanted, again, the chorus to build. So that's why I did that. And let me just bring this over to the chorus. Let me mute the guitars here for a quick second so you guys can hear just the pianos. Here's kind of what we got. Okay, so that's what we have. So we have virtual tape machine, we have VCC, and we have our vision channel strip. Okay, so here I'm rolling off a little bit higher, probably around 200, 150 hertz on the low cut. On the compressor, I'm doing a medium release. I'm doing a soft knee, I'm doing a fast attack, and I'm compressing a 4:1 ratio. About 3 dB of compression or so, 3 to 6 dB when he's hitting those keys at its hardest point. On the EQ at 5K, I'm doing a little bit of a bump. At 8K, I'm doing a big bump at 8K, almost 10 dB, just to give it some cut through. And then at 500 hertz, rolling off a little bit. And so this is what we have before. Let me bring them both up because this is a left-right thing, just like the two chorus guitars. Okay, so let's shut off the channel strip here, and then I'll turn them on about halfway through so you can hear what's going on there. Okay, so that big boost over at 8K really got these pianos to kind of pop. It's really dark and kind of really, I wouldn't say muddy, but it's very dark sounding before this channel strip. Listen to that again. Listen to how dark those pianos are. They don't cut at all. And right now you don't hear any other guitars. Remember, you got the big rhythm or the big chorus guitars going on during this section. Okay, here they come. Okay, and that's our chorus. So there's our chorus with our pianos and our guitars. And again, the balance is now off because I've been turning things up to let you listen. And again, did the same thing with the keyboard reverb. I'm just using the Ocean Way once again, just to put everything in the same space. Nothing, no big major, revelations here. So that is our guitars and our there we go. There's our guitars and our keyboards and bass guitars and keyboards for this mix. Again, hopefully you were able to pick up a couple of tips here. So again, what I try to reiterate in this particular lesson is that you don't want to just get yourself caught where you're always kind of doing the same thing. When you have tracks that are recorded well and you're mixing, you want to think creatively and you want to think about, again, what can make this better? Can anything make it better? Is it just, plain Jane, or can we add something to the soup to kind of spice it up? And I'm always thinking that, and then I'm always going back and tweaking things along the way. And this is one of the reasons why, and you'll see this when we get to the automation section down the road a little bit, where there's lots of experimenting going on to really make the mix pop. Because at the end of the day, when someone listens to this, you want it to compete, right, with stuff that's on the radio. I want it to jump out and grab you by the face out of the speakers. And the way to do that is to give the listener constantly something else to listen to, even though they don't even realize there's something else really happening. Right. So that's kind of the thought process I want to kind of pass along to you as you're working on your projects. Always be thinking about what else can I add to it? Can I be a little bit creative with this? You go too far and then back it off. And if you do that and you get more in that mindset, you're going to find that your mixes are going to start to have some more personality, some more character to it. And then you're going to develop your own little go-to kind of things that you do in a lot of your mixes that's going to kind of be part of your signature sound. Every mix engineer has a sound, just like every guitar player has, a certain tone. Well, every mix engineer, once they get good at this, has their own little sound and their own kind of little style, if you will. And this is how you develop that style, by throwing plugins on and turning knobs and experimenting and listening, and try to get yourself out of the mode of, what should the attack and release settings be? You got to get out of that technical thinking. You got to think more creatively and go, okay, what can I add to this? What should I take away from this? Should I strip stuff out of the verses? How do I get the song to build? How do I keep it interesting? Make sense? So let me check out the chat. I'm going to look over here and see what we got going on there. Got a bunch of people here. I know it's early in the morning, at least it is for me. And what will happen is this will be out in the archive, obviously, and you'll be able to see this on YouTube a little bit later. Does anyone have any questions? We're at about 55 minutes. I'll stay on for about 5 more minutes. I'm going to call it quits. I'm going to try to keep these videos to an hour. And then over the next couple of days, we'll move into the vocals and we'll start playing around with that stuff. And if there's any other things that I've done to this mix since then, just like with the drums, I'll come back and I'll share that with you. Hey, Johnny, what's going on? 3 p.m. Hey, how about that? It's 10 o'clock in the morning. I should be still sleeping, man. I was up working until 2 o'clock in the morning yesterday. And again, for anyone that's new, that's never seen my channel before, welcome to Home Recording Made Easy. I appreciate you stopping by and joining. I appreciate your kind comments. Leave comments. Let me know what you think about this kind of thing. I'm going to do more of these live streams, and I got a whole bunch of ideas on how I can maybe help better educate and teach and pass along knowledge to you guys via the live stream. If you have never been here before, welcome, and be sure to check out homerecordingmadeeasy.com if you want a whole slew of training on mixing, mastering, and recording. So what do we got going on? Who's in the chat? We got 22 people now still sticking around. So what questions do you guys have? Do you have any? Johnny says he'll be working till 2 a.m. for you. Yeah, I know. It's the way it is, man. It's what we do, but we love what we do. I mean, well, who's better than this? We get to sit here and play with music all day, right? It's nice. It's fun. So I got another 3 minutes here, and then I'm going to sign off. If you guys have any questions at all, please feel free to ask me in the chat. If not, that's totally cool. Again, hopefully a lot more people will see this in the archive. I will archive this right away, and you guys can check it out. Hopefully the sound and everything was good. Johnny, can you let me know with the sound? Because Johnny was here yesterday, too. My buddy Johnny out in, I don't know, where are you? You're not London, are you? I forget where you are. I know you're so far away from me. But how was the sound today, Johnny, compared to yesterday? Both my voice and Studio One. Was everything still on par with yesterday? That would be important for me to know as I'm getting used to this whole live casting thing. Is the Johnny wants to know, is the API channel strip only available in UAD? Yes, I believe so. I don't know another company that makes I think that was an exclusive thing with Universal Audio. I know Waves may make one too, Johnny. You may want to check that out. I don't know. You're in Scotland. That's where you are. That's right. Scotland. I'd love to go to Scotland and check it out sometime. I think Waves might make, I know they make API EQs and compressors. They might make a channel strip. I don't know. But this is a UAD one. Like I said yesterday, I love the UAD channel strips, man. Between the Neve, the two SSLs, and the API, you know, you got the most classic consoles that were ever created. Waves makes a good version of the SSL 4000, which I just picked up, which I haven't played with a lot, but I'm really digging that. And they also make the EMI TG12345 Waves makes, and that's an interesting console channel strip, completely laid out differently and works completely different than a normal console. And I have that, and I've used it on a couple of mixes, and I need to dive into that a little bit more. It's got a really unique sound to it. It's really, really cool. Okay, Johnny says the Studio One and the voice sound great. Okay, awesome. Right on, man. I think me and Johnny got this thing licked. For anyone who doesn't know, Johnny over in Scotland has been helping me work through this live stream stuff as I'm still a novice. But I think we got it figured out, Johnny, and I'm really psyched about that. So we're going to do a lot more of these things. We're going to be doing classes on EQ, compression, and all kinds of stuff. We're going to keep doing mixing stuff. We're going to do mastering stuff. I'm going to do all kinds of stuff. So anyway, I don't see any other questions. I thank all of you for joining me. And if you're watching this again in the archive, thanks so much. Go back and check out yesterday's video when we did the drums, and then head out to homerecordingmadeeasy.com and check out all the stuff I have over there. Please go out to Facebook and like me there, Home Recording Made Easy. And I will see you guys on the flip-flop next time. And we'll take a look at this mix, and we will continue on. So until then, I thank you again and take care. See ya.